Beginning, the day the Empress fell from the sky. The day the most powerful woman in the galaxy crashed into my life, I was fixing a broken moisture turbine in the middle of the desert. I'm not exaggerating. Jalen Ward, a nobody from the frontier moon Hestara, 4, was elbow-deep in rusted metal and sand grit, swearing at a bolt that refused to come loose, when the sky tore open. A streak of white fire, too controlled to be debris, too fast to be a shuttle, burst through the clouds. A sonic roar followed, shaking the dunes. I stumbled back as the object crash-landed barely a kilometer away, sending up a pillar of smoke and glass sand. I thought it was some smugglers dumping cargo. Or worse, pirates scouting settlements. I never imagined it would be her. The rumors about the new Empress of the Tri-Star Dominion had spread across the Outer Rim. A woman young enough to be underestimated, brilliant enough to terrify senators twice her age, and ruthless enough to unite warring sectors. They said she'd never lost a negotiation, let alone a war. But none of that mattered when I found her unconscious in the wreckage of a sleek drop pod, blood trickling down her temple, armor cracked, breathing shallow. She didn't look like an empress. She looked human. Frighteningly so. I knelt beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened just a sliver. Bright, molten gold, the unmistakable mark of Dominion royalty. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't call for help." Her hand gripped my wrist with surprising strength. Assassins. They'll track any transmission. My first instinct was to step back. Assassins? Royalty? This was way above my pay grade. But then she winced, and I saw a tremor run through her body. She was hurt. Badly. I swallowed hard. "All right. I won't send a signal. But you're bleeding internally. I need to get you to my homestead." She nodded faintly, and then passed out again. I didn't know it then, but that simple choice, lifting her into my speeder and taking her home, would alter the future of the entire galaxy. Because the woman whose life I saved that day was Empress Kayla Viren, ruler of 300 habitable worlds. And by the time her people found her again, she was no longer alone. She had me. Middle. The week that changed everything. I expected her to be cold, arrogant, commanding, everything the Holonet painted her to be. Instead, when she woke the next morning, disoriented and breathing heavily from the pain, she looked at me with something I never expected. Gratitude. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "I think that's debatable," I replied. "You're the one who crawled out of a burning pod." Despite the pain, she smiled. "You're bold." "You're my house," I pointed out. "I figure you can't execute me until you can stand again." To my horror, she laughed, a genuine, warm sound, and immediately clutched her ribs in agony. I helped her sit up, adjusting her bandages. She watched me with an intensity that made my ears burn. "You're not afraid of me," she said. "Should I be?" "Yes," she answered honestly. I shrugged. "I'll save that for when you can walk." Over the next days, as she recovered, she told me bits and pieces of what had happened. A coup attempt. A betrayal within her inner council. A stealth cruiser sabotaged mid-flight. She survived by ejecting in an emergency pod, barely. Her attackers believed she died in the explosion, which meant she had a few days of safety until they checked the crash site. In the quiet of the desert, with only wind and shifting dunes for company, she began to talk to me in ways she likely had never spoken to anyone. She wasn't just a ruler. She was a woman carrying the weight of an entire galaxy. She told me of expectations, pressure, and loneliness. Of the throne she never wanted, but couldn't refuse. Of the endless cycle of diplomacy and danger. And sometimes she asked about me. My life was the opposite of hers, Simple, manual, anonymous. I repaired machinery, hunted for scrap, and kept to myself. I wasn't famous. I wasn't powerful. I barely had enough credits to keep my generator from shutting down every other week. "You live freely," she said once, staring at the red moon rising over the dunes. "Do you know how rare that is?" "Freedom isn't glamorous," I replied. "It's just hard work and sandstorms." "But it's yours," she whispered. Sometimes I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, not with suspicion, but with something softer, something that scared me more than assassins or royal conspiracies. Respect. Connection. Maybe even affection. By the 5th day, she was strong enough to walk short distances. I supported her as she practiced moving again, her hand gripping my shoulder, her breath warm against my ear. "You're recovering fast," I said. "I've had good care." "You say that like you're surprised." "I am." She stopped walking and faced me fully. "In the palace, everyone wants something from me. Everyone bows. Everyone lies. You're the first person in years who's spoken to me as if I'm normal. That's because I didn't know who you were when I brought you home. But you know now. And you're still the woman who fell out of the sky and bled on my carpet." She gave me a look, one I couldn't decode at first. Something between disbelief and hope. That night, we talked until the twin moons rose high. She told me secrets that would have destroyed entire governments if I repeated them. I listened, offering nothing but presence, honesty, and occasionally a half-sarcastic comment that made her roll her eyes. She told me she trusted me. That terrified me more than anything. But I didn't realize how deep that trust ran until the assassins arrived. The attack, it was the 7th night. I woke to silence, too much silence. Then a faint hum. Not the wind. Not my generator. Hoverbikes. Approaching fast. I ran to Kayla's room. She was already awake, eyes sharp, hair braided tightly, holding one of my old electro tools like a weapon. "They've found me," she whispered. "No time to run. No time to hide." The first shockwave tore through the front wall of my homestead. I tackled her to the ground as debris scattered. Blaster shots cut through the smoke. Kayla, despite her injuries, grabbed my arm. "Stay behind me. I'm not letting you fight alone. You don't have a choice. They're here for me." She kicked aside the broken door panel and stepped into the open desert, moving like someone who had been trained since childhood to survive impossible odds. But there were too many of them. Cloaked assassins, their armor reflecting the moonlight, advanced in formation. Kayla fought fiercely, but she was still healing. One strike to her side made her gasp. Another blow knocked her to her knees. I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed my industrial plasma cutter, the closest thing to a weapon I owned, and charged into the fray. The first assassin didn't expect a civilian with a tool that could slice through ship hulls. One swing tore through his gauntlet, forcing him back. Another lunged toward Kayla. I slammed into him, taking the hit myself. Pain burned through my ribs, but I didn't stop. Kayla looked at me, shocked, the Empress watching a nobody from nowhere defend her like a soldier. We fought back to back until the sky exploded with shuttle lights. Her royal guard, finally arriving, alerted by energy signatures, descended in a storm of precision fire. The assassins fled. The desert fell quiet again. Kayla collapsed, exhausted, and I caught her before she hit the sand. Her hand rose weakly to my cheek. "You saved my life," she whispered. "No," I said, breathless. "Just returning the favor." Her eyes softened in a way I would never forget. The ending, years later, when the galaxy remembered her. And she remembered me when the Royal Guard realized who I was, the civilian who sheltered their Empress for a week, They treated me like a priceless artifact. I was scanned, questioned, decontaminated, and nearly arrested before Kayla intervened. She stood on unsteady legs, still bandaged, and commanded, "He is under my personal protection." From this moment forward, the guards bowed instantly. I was rushed onto the shuttle with her, despite protesting that my moisture turbines would rust without me. She ignored every argument. "You've seen too much," she said. "And besides, I don't want to leave you behind." The palace was nothing like my desert home. Marble halls, floating platforms, guards in shimmering armor, and through it all, Kayla walked beside me, refusing to be carried. Her council was horrified at her attachment to me. A common laborer, a frontier nobody, a man with sand still stuck in his boots. But she never backed down. In the weeks that followed, she stabilized the Dominion, exposed the traitors, rebuilt trust, and reasserted her rule with stunning efficiency. And at every major announcement, every council meeting, every diplomatic gathering, she looked for me first. One night, after a long session with the Senate, she summoned me to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent dome. "I owe you everything," she said softly. "You don't owe me anything," I replied. "Anyone would have helped you." "No," she said firmly. "Not anyone." She stepped closer. "In the desert, you saw me not as an empress, but as a person. That is a gift I have never been given." "Kayla," she took my hand. "I rule the galaxy," she whispered. "But you grounded me. You reminded me what it means to trust. And to be seen." I swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" She smiled. Not the regal smile that intimidated politicians, but the private, vulnerable one she had shown me under the twin moons. "You stay," she said simply. "As long as you want. People will talk." "They already do," she laughed. "But let them. I do not rule for their gossip." I looked at her, the woman who had carried galaxies on her shoulders, who had survived betrayal, assassination, and war, yet still remembered the man who found her in the sand. "I'll stay," I said. Her expression faltered, then softened into something I had only seen once, the night she thought she would die in my arms. And then she stepped close enough that I could hear her heartbeat. It was steady, warm, human. "Jalen Ward," she whispered, "you saved my life. But more than that, you changed it." She rested her forehead against mine, and for a moment, the galaxy outside the dome faded into silence. "I will never forget you," she said. A soft laugh escaped me. "That's good. You'd be a hard woman to forget." She smirked, the Empress returning for only a heartbeat. "Then we understand each other." And there, under a billion stars she ruled and protected, Empress Kayla Viren and I stood together, not as ruler and citizen, but as two souls who had found each other in the most impossible corner of the universe. And neither of us would ever be alone again.